Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We are in video now on Spotify and YouTube, which is very exciting. You can view us on video if you like to see faces of the voices you're hearing.
Should we wink at the camera?
Sure.
Oh, no. Are you going to start dressing differently now that we are on video?
No, I try to wear a women's sports t-shirt every time, so I will not. Although last week is somehow the first time I did not wear a women's sports t-shirt and we were recording on video. I don't know what I was doing. How about you?
No, I'm going to continue to look like I'm calling myself Little Rat Girl Summer, and that's what I'm going with.
I think you look good right now.
Thank you.
Of course.
And do you think that if people decide that they're going to watch us, because we did this really for the Gen Zers. We know that us millennials are not into watching video, but I think Gen Z is. So we're putting the video out there just in case people want to watch. Do you think people are going to be surprised by our faces? Because sometimes you have an idea of what a person's face is going to look like due to their voice, and then you see them and you're like, oh my gosh, that's not what I was expecting at all.
Possibly, unless they've been following us on Instagram and YouTube, then they would already know. But if they're new and just seeing us on video for the first time, I think it's always surprising to see people in person after hearing their voices.
I just think of people's radio voices, and then you see them and you're like, whoa, they've got a face for radio, as they say. I think we might have faces for radio.
You don't. I might.
That is not true.
Anyways.
You could tell we're a little self-conscious about being on videos. Be nice to us in the comments. We are regular people, and we're trying to give the people what they want, you know?
And another exciting advancement here at the Women's Sports Weekly headquarters is we are now on Strava.
What is Strava?
So you might have heard me talk about marathon training. I like to run, and Strava is a social media for runners, bikers, walkers, and really any activity. You basically post your exercise onto this feed, and it's like an Instagram for workouts.
Strava is very interesting because people really try to put their best effort there on Strava. Like, I know people who, if they don't run their best, they're not going to put it on Strava. I also notice that when you run with me, you make sure to put that you run with me in the comments so that all of your Strava followers know that the reason why you're running slow is because you're running with me.
That is not true.
Danielle, can you just admit that?
I post that I ran with you because I'm excited that I ran with you.
Sure.
You act like I'm Speedy Gonzalez over here.
You're a lot faster than I am.
I wouldn't say a lot, but Strava's a lot of fun. We created a group on Strava. Please join us, Women's Sports Weekly. Not only do you post your workouts, but you can also just engage with other people on the platform and post similar to how you would with pictures on Instagram in a group or Facebook. I feel like it's a mix of many different forms of social, but especially if you're out there running or biking, it's just a fun way to interact.
Women's Sports Weekly has a group on Strava. Anyone can go and join that group.
It's public. Yep. Everyone
That's
could join us. So I hope to see more people in there. We also drop when new episodes are uploaded. We really hope to see more followers on Strava.
Our friend told us that we could create a group on Strava. Our friend Amanda told us that she's in a potato group on Strava. So there's really something for everyone. There's a potato group on Strava where you can post potatoes you're eating while you're running.
Not while you're running, just after your run.
Okay, if you're joining the potato group on Strava, the least you could do is also join the Women's Sports Weekly group on Strava.
And shout out to Amanda for giving us this great idea because I just wouldn't have thought of doing this. We are very grateful for that.
And we'll cover all our bases. If there's more social media we should be part of, let us know and we'll create a group there.
This week, we celebrated an important date to our relationship. We have been together for 9 years.
And I feel like we've said we've been together for 9 years leading up to this. So people may be like, well, they've already been together 9 years. But no, September 5th is our dating anniversary. We started dating all the way back in 2015.
Correct.
We were just tiny little babies.
I was 23 and you were
24.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
And we've come a long way. We have been dating since 2015. And then we got married We actually officially got married on our dating anniversary because we got married in Colorado. We had our wedding in New Jersey, but we got married in Colorado because in Colorado, you don't need a witness. We actually had Scout put her little paw on
our dog Scout.
Yes, on our wedding certificate. So we got married in a park, just you and I and Scout 2 years ago, but on our dating anniversary. Our wedding date is in October, where we had a big wedding back in New Jersey, which we also celebrate. So from now, this September 5th time frame until October 15th, we just have a month and a half of celebration.
I love a good celebration and reason to do anything outside of our norms. On September 5th this past week, we decided to do an at-home date, which was actually quite nice. We ordered sushi takeout, which there's a great spot around the corner from us.
A block away. It's so nice. And
So
I
good.
still want Danielle to get it delivered.
Oh my gosh. I think we've talked about Palisade on the pod before, but if you're ever looking for a cheaper version of California wine country, come to Colorado wine country because it is amazing. Our friend Meg, shout out Meg, loves to go there and she always brings us back goodies. So we had a sparkling rosé waiting for us and I was like, we have to open it on our anniversary.
I hope our first sponsor on this podcast is Restoration Winery.
Wow.
Restoration, if you're listening, we want you to sponsor us because we love that rosé.
I agree. This is free ads right now for Restoration. But anyways, it was very nice. We did it on the front porch on our little swing chair and it was a beautiful night.
Yeah. And last week you were saying that it was too hot out and this week it's changed and now there's pumpkins at our house. So last week Danielle was saying, she was like, I can't even think about fall decor. This week there's pumpkins in our house. We had pumpkin wine that we had to get from Trader Joe's.
Oh, would not recommend. I dumped it down the
sweet.
drain.
We were going to drink it when we were recording this podcast and I was like, I don't think I can do it. We got to celebrate our date night outside and it was really, really nice. We were watching tennis through the window because through our front window you can see our TV and it was just the best.
Yeah, for sure. But the weather's finally changing, at least in the morning. It's a little cooler in Denver, especially for running. I've just been loving it. Excited for more cool temps to come.
All right, let's get into our highlight reel for this week. Let's start with the U.S. Open finals with Aryna Sabalenka, who is ranked number 2 in the world, versus Jessica Pegula, ranked number 6 from the USA last Saturday. Before we get into this match, let's talk about how we got here.
And I would just like to say, I get more and more into tennis every time I watch it. This U.S. Open was so fun to watch.
So Danielle always thought I was really hoity-toity for watching tennis.
I do think it's a ritzy, pretty sport. Just like you think lacrosse is.
Yes.
Just a reminder.
But we were watching this finals and you were screaming, shouting, clapping the entire time.
Yes, it's very fun to watch.
So how we got here. Jessica Pegula beat number 1 in the world, Iga Swiatek, in straight sets in the quarter finals. She has been playing so incredibly well. To beat the number 1 in the world was amazing for her. Amazing in general. Then she goes on and beats Carolina Mahova in the semifinals after losing the first set. So she's proving that she can drop a first set, which is really hard to do in women's tennis because it's only best set of 3. And she comes back and she wins to advance to the finals. This was her first Grand Slam singles final. I don't know if Jess Pegula listens to Women's Sports Weekly, but if she does, she has made such tremendous change to her game. And I'm like, you deserve to be in the finals. And I don't know if she knows that. She is very good at keeping a straight face the entire time. But the tennis that she played this entire US Open was so amazing. And I hope she takes this with her. And I know once we get into this match against Aryna Sabalenka that it was a tough one for her. But I'm like, you deserve to be here. And I hope she knows that.
It's what I said after the match. This was her first Grand Slam final. She's going to grow just by being in that situation. Maybe next time around, she will believe she belongs there. But I think it's hard when it's your first time there. I feel like it goes two ways. You just go because you have nothing to lose and you're not as tense as the person who's been there before. Or you get a little tense. And she still played great, but unfortunately it was not the outcome she would have wanted.
Okay, so before we get into that, let's talk about how Aryna Sabalenka got there. As a reminder, Aryna Sabalenka lost to Coco Gauff in the final last year in the US Open. She admitted that the pro Coco crowd affected her performance. She was a little bit more mental last year. She is not the same player she was last year. She came in, she beat Emma Navarro from the USA to get to the finals, and she was able to joke with the crowd. She was like, I'll buy you drinks if you guys cheer for me. And she was just so incredibly powerful powerful in that match against Emma Navarro, who also went on a tear in this US Open. But Sabalenka looked so powerful, both mentally and physically, in her match against her. I said to you before she took on the finals this past weekend, I said, I think Sabalenka is going to kill Jessica Pegula. And that is not what happened, but the level of tennis that Aryna Sabalenka was playing, I was like, whoa. So then we get into the finals match this past Saturday. And tennis is so weird because the two people who are playing each other, they walk out together.
Yeah.
They pretty much walk out like one after the other. You warm up together. And then before the match, you have to take a picture with the person you're playing against. It's very strange.
It definitely would get into my head, but I guess you get so used to it that by that point, they just know that's part of the game.
First set, they're going back and forth, but Aryna Sabalenka ends up winning the first set 7-5. In this first set, they both were a little bit mentally getting to themselves. They both were having trouble with their racket. They both slammed their rackets at some point, which I really love because that is very relatable, because all I want to do when I play tennis is slam my rackets. But Sabalenka comes on top 7-5.
And it was a really great set of tennis. Back and forth, just super fun to watch.
Then we get into the second set, and Jessica Pegula is down 3-0.
Quickly. I looked down and I feel like I looked up and it was 3-0.
I'm like, okay, it's over. And she claws her way back. She has a chance to win the second set, to win it and push it to a third, but she loses the game and allows Sabalenka back in. And Sabalenka, again, they go back and forth, but Sabalenka takes the second set 7-5, just like the first, and wins the match. Her box had tiger tattoos. So we've talked about Aryna Sabalenka before. She has this really cool tiger tattoo on her forearm. Her entire box had tiger tattoos on, and her fitness coach had a tiger tattoo on top of his bald head.
It looked pretty ridiculous. I love tigers. They're my favorite animal, but wow, that tattoo is a statement, and I hope it's not permanent for his sake.
It's definitely not permanent, but when I saw it, I was like, wow, she better win that match, or else he's going to be walking around with a tiger tattoo on his head after this. But it was really great redemption for Sabalenka after losing last year to Coco Gauff. She is one of my favorite players to watch, and although I would have loved to see Jessica Pegula from the USA win and win her first Grand Slam, I think it was really cool for Sabalenka to win as well.
Yeah, I think you secretly were hoping Sabalenka.
I wasn't, because like I said, if Jess Pegula is listening, I want you to continue on this road, and I was rooting for you. I just really like some of the players, and this is where I struggle with tennis, because I get to know the players and then I really want them to win. But again, I really did want Jess Pegula to win, but I was happy.
It's okay, Jessie. I was rooting for you the whole time.
All right. Let's quickly get into this WNBA playoff watch that's happening right now.
Very exciting.
Last time we had our episode, there were 5 teams who clinched out of 8 spots. Now there is 7. The New York Liberty, Connecticut Sun, Minnesota Lynx, Las Vegas Aces, and Seattle Storm had all clinched. This past week, the Phoenix Mercury also clinched, and the Indiana Fever have officially clinched spot in the playoffs.
Did you know this was the Indiana Fever's first time since 2016?
It's really amazing.
It's insane.
If you asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have said it would never happen.
I wouldn't have agreed with you, I don't think, but they're here.
What I would have said is if they get into the playoffs, they're going to have to scratch and claw their way to get in, and they have a solid spot in the playoffs. And if they end out this season, well, they're going to have a pretty good seed.
And the cool thing about the Fever this year is, of course, you have Caitlin Clark. Everyone knows that. But with how good she's been playing, now you get to see how much talent is on that team outside of her. And I feel like everyone's been having their moments to shine on the Fever, and that's been really fun to follow.
That's a good point. So there's 1 spot remaining for the playoffs. The LA Sparks, unfortunately, cannot make the playoffs, which leaves the Atlanta Dream, Chicago Sky, Dallas Wings, and Washington Mystics. Last week I said there's no way the Washington Mystics are making it, but the Mystics are on a roll, and they had a really impressive win over the Mercury last Thursday. They are on a little bit of a winning streak. They have a real chance now to make the playoffs despite starting the season 0-12.
I just don't see it happening. I think my bet's on Chicago.
It's going to be very interesting. The regular season ends on September 19th. Playoffs begin September 22nd. We've got our eyes on this.
So soon. Another exciting thing is college volleyball is officially back. I've been getting excited for college volleyball because watching the Olympics volleyball really got me fired up because it was so fun to watch. No surprise to most people, Nebraska is up in the top 5 again this year to start off the season. And just last year, Nebraska hosted Omaha in an outdoor volleyball match at the football stadium. Do you remember seeing this on social media? They hosted 92,003 people at this match in the football stadium, which set a record for the largest crowd to watch a women's sporting event live in U.S. history.
And this is also world history.
Yes. So that was just last year.
I don't know where you find 92,000 people in Nebraska.
Well, yeah, I don't know. But
Did
they came.
everyone in Nebraska go to that?
I think Nebraska must have more people than you think. And of course, a lot of eyes are on Nebraska because they're always very good. But they got upset this past week by SMU, which is Southern Methodist University. The last time Nebraska was swept by an unranked opponent, and swept means they won 3 sets in a row.
Because they play best of 5.
Yes, was in 2014, and that was against Michigan. 2014, that's when I was a senior in college. That was a long time ago.
I also feel like these early matches early in the year are good lessons.
This was the first time for SMU program history that they beat a top 5 team. All of the sets were pretty close in score. It was 25-23, 25-21, and 25-18. So Nebraska didn't go down easily, but they did lose in 3 straight sets. Shout out to some of the players in this match. Graduate students Naya Scheim and Maya Tabron, who both had 9 kills, which was tied for the match high. And Scheim nearly doubled by adding 10 digs to her 9 kills. Additionally, grad transfer Natalie Foster, she came from Wichita State, finished with 8 kills.
A kill is when you spike the ball and the other team can't get it. Sorry to our volleyball listeners. I'm going to try to explain this in my layman's terms, which is probably not the best. And then a dig is when someone spikes the ball and they are able to almost kind of dig it out, and the defense is able to play that ball up. So to have 10 digs and 9 kills, that means you're playing both offense and defense.
And doing it very well.
Yeah.
And senior Jamison Wheeler finished with 6 kills and 13 digs. All around, a lot of contribution from the team there. At the time of recording, SMU is now 4-2 on the season, and Nebraska is 5-1. A lot of exciting matches coming up this week. Be on the lookout for college volleyball.
For our deep dive today, we need to talk about Alex Morgan.
Oh, the one and only. So sad, but also good for her.
Alex Morgan, professional soccer player, announced her retirement this past week. She is the U.S. women's national team and San Diego Wave striker. And she also announced on top of her retirement that she is pregnant with baby number 2.
Yes, very exciting.
So let's go into what Alex Morgan has done for this game of soccer, which is just incredible. She has 224 caps for the U.S. women's national team and 123 goals for them. That is 5th all time. She has won 2 World Cups in 2015 and 2019, has the Olympic gold in 2012 and bronze in 2021. She won an NWSL championship with the Portland Thorns in 2013. And in 2022, just 2 years ago, she won the NWSL Golden Boot for most goals scored in a season. With her retirement, I just realized we're getting old.
So old. It's actually depressing.
Because I remember when Alex Morgan first hit the field with her little pre-wrap, and we were like, who is this girl? She is so fast, and she is moving down that field, and she is scoring goals, and now she is retiring.
They were showing highlights with her and Abby Wambach. When's the last time Abby Wambach played? It's just crazy to think about.
I know. However, I think that these players, when we were growing up, it was like Abby Wambach and Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Sydney Leroux. These players are beginning to retire. Sydney Leroux is still playing. But I think the impact that they are leaving for not only soccer players who are coming up, but also every single person who plays in women's sports, I think that's going to be the legacy of Alex Morgan and her peers.
Absolutely. She was talking about her daughter, and her daughter was just saying, when I grow up, I want to be a soccer player. And she was so emotional just saying, it's not the fact that she's saying she wants to be a soccer player. It's the fact that she can see that as a path for a career. And for so long, women or young girls couldn't see that. And for her to have her daughter, her young daughter, saying that, it was just an emotional moment for her.
In episode 24, we talked about women's national national teams fighting for better treatment. And we didn't mention the U.S. women's national team because they've come such a long way. But the U.S. women's national team had to do the same exact thing back in 2019. During that time, when Alex Morgan was on the U.S. women's national team, the 28 players of that team filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation for institutionalized gender discrimination. That must have been incredibly hard for these players to do, to go against your own federation, the federation that pays you, the federation that says whether or not you're going to be on the team. That is very, very risky.
Yeah, and they knew they had to do it because they have people all over the world who know who the U.S. women's national team is. People, I would say, follow them way more than the men across the board. And yet they have to fight, or they've been on this fight for equal pay. It's just things that men would not need to think about.
The lawsuit was filed under the Equal Pay Act and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and focused on two areas, equal pay and working conditions. So they filed it in 2019. In 2020, the U.S. Soccer Federation comes out with a legal filing that was made public. And this is what threw everyone into a tizzy, because the filing said that the U.S. women's national team players do not perform equal work requiring equal skill and effort because the overall soccer playing ability required to compete at the senior men's national team level is influenced by the level of certain physical attributes such as speed and strength. So they pretty much said that because the men were physically stronger and faster, that the women should not be paid the same. This is where I get upset, because no matter what, women are told that they don't deserve equal pay. If they win the most, if they bring more attention, which the U.S. women's national team does, it's like, well, you're not fast and strong enough. And then on the flip side, if they work just as hard, if they do everything that the men's team does, it's like, well, you don't bring in enough money. It's a lose-lose every single time.
This makes me think of the video, and it's a great commercial where the AI shows these players doing all these amazing moves, and it's men, but then it shows that it was actually the women, and then they show the replay of the real life moments and the highlights they were showing. And yes, men are stronger, like they're built more, but that doesn't mean they're more skilled. That doesn't mean they should just make more money because they're stronger and faster. That makes no sense. Yes, it has something to do with the game if they were going up against each other, but they're not. And they're doing the same sport. They're doing the exact same sport. So it's just not a good argument.
And they're putting in the same level of effort and the same level of commitment, and they're actually getting paid less. So then on top of that, they probably have to have a million side gigs in order to make the money that they need to make. It's just crazy. So that happened in 2020. And then there was just this back and forth for years. The U.S. women's national team had to appeal parts of the decisions that were being made. But finally in 2022, the U.S. women's national team received a settlement of $24 million from the U.S. Soccer Federation. They had asked for $68 million, but they still viewed this as a win, the $24 million. They should have gotten more, but they were like, okay, it doesn't matter, because most importantly in this settlement, the U.S. Soccer Federation committed to providing an equal rate of pay moving forward to the women's and men's national teams in all friendlies and all tournaments, which includes the World Cup.
That's amazing, and how it should be.
Exactly. When Alex Morgan was asked if she would go into coaching, she said she hadn't taken any certifications for coaching. She really wasn't thinking that that's where her impact could be, but she did say that she would continue to invest in women's sports, and she has always been true to that promise. She is one of the co-founders of Together. I'm wearing their shirt. Everyone watches women's sports tees. They make those, but Together is actually a media company promoting women's voices in sport and culture.
One of my coworkers pinged me when the announcement was made, and one of my responses back to her was, I just hope she continues to invest in women's sports because people know who she is. People really like her. She has a voice, and to use her platform is going to be really important moving forward.
Yeah, and she has pretty privilege, right? Like, men will listen to her because she's pretty, which Alex Morgan is so many more things than that. But for someone like her, who's straight, who's white, to take her privilege and say, actually, I'm going to make you all invest in women's sports, I think that's the most amazing thing you can do. What I want to say about Alex Morgan is that she, again, is paving the way for these upcoming athletes. Her mark is even on this historic CBA collective bargaining agreement that was signed for the NWSL. That team paved the way for this new CBA. They've paved the way for other national teams to advocate for themselves. And I am so proud to even be born in this same time, although I've had nothing to do with it. But like our generation of these millennials are change makers. And she is one of those. And I'm just happy I got to witness it.
Yes. So congratulations to Alex Morgan. Incredible career. Excited to see what you continue to do in the women's sports world. And congrats on baby number 2 too.
I know.
That's so exciting.
Growing your family and still being a badass. Things we'd love to see.
Yes. Looking ahead this week, what do you have for us, Carolyn?
I'm going to stay in the NWSL. The Orlando Pride play the KC Current on Friday, September 13th at 8 p.m.
Friday the 13th.
Oh, I love Friday the 13th. You know I love an odd number. Friday's the 5th day of the week if you count Monday as the first day, which I do because Sunday doesn't really count. I love the number 13. So Friday the 13th, I love it at 8 p.m. Eastern time. The KC Current have been struggling since the Olympic break and the Orlando Pride have been unbeaten. What are you looking forward to this week?
I am looking forward to the WNBA, the Washington Mystics versus the Chicago Sky, who once again are fighting for that last remaining playoff spot. They play Wednesday, September 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern on League Pass.
And Kennedy Carter is back for the Chicago Sky, and the Washington Mystics are on a roll. So very interesting. This playoff is heating up.
Yes, it should be a great game. That's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. And don't forget to join us on Strava. Thanks for joining us this week and see you next week.
See you next Tuesday.